Welcome back, everybody, to the afternoon session of the symposium this afternoon. My name is Rowena. I'll be hosting the next couple of presenters. Before we went to the break, there was a question for Renata about the number of SCIS cataloguers currently employed. She did provide us with an answer in the chat, so if anybody's interested, it's 23 cataloguers. Not all of them are full-time, though. Any other questions, feel free to pop them into the chat or actually email them through the ask a question function there. So our next keynote speaker is Roxanne Missingham. Roxanne is the University Librarian at the Australian National University. She is leading a portfolio that includes libraries, archives, press, privacy, copyright, and digital scholarship. She is passionate about the value that libraries contribute to their organisations and opportunities to extend the benefit of libraries across the globe. Roxanne will now talk about her presentation, What Will the Future Hold? Skills for the New Library World. Roxanne.
Thank you so much, Rowena. And it's an absolute privilege to be with you all today. Congratulations to the organising committee. Thank you so much to everyone for the contribution that you're making to your colleagues by keeping the library technician profession moving forward. It's absolutely brilliant. So my topic for today is what will the future hold? Skills for the new library world. And I'm starting with an image from, as you'll recognise, Doctor Who's Silence in the Library episodes. And I've got to say, there's a sci-fi theme here. If anyone has their favourite sci-fi library references, I would love you to share them with me because there's some really interesting dimensions there and the images are always great as well. So I would like to start by saying Yuma Darawa Ngunnawal. So I am speaking to you today from Ngunnawal land, and I would like to recognise our Indigenous leaders, past and present, and pay my respects to all Indigenous Australians. So, welcome to 2021. We all thought 2020 was going to be a disastrous year. It would be a small blip on the landscape of libraries and the world and Australia. But lo and behold, 2021 has been just as challenging and has actually started to make deep and fundamental changes, and I think it will be quite a while before we work our way through them as a world, as a nation, and the effect on libraries has been particularly profound. So I'm speaking to you today from Canberra. It's the 75th anniversary of the university, and I wanted to reflect on the fact that amongst the first handful of people employed by the university was the university librarian. So for many organisations, particularly in education, libraries are seen as foundation stones, as the critical thing that you must have in place at the very beginning. And of course, there are standards and regulators look to those standards to ensure they exist. So libraries have often, as we progress through time, been that front end, first off the rank provider of services to keep a community going. And I think we've seen enormous strengths based on that organisational understanding in the pandemic, and it's challenged us in new and different ways. So I want to put a little bit of context about some of the thinking we've been doing here and some of the influence. So we at the university have really been going through a strategic reinvention, which I think parallels the reinvention that we're needing to have across libraries. So we've had fires, we've had hailstorms, we've had the pandemic, we've had a flood, and the forecast for the future is that these chaotic interventions are likely to continue. We've really reflected on that to think about what is it that is of enduring value, what is it that will connect with the community, and most importantly, I think for this presentation, what are the skills that we will need in that reinvention? Because 2 years of a disaster, 2 years of the change means that all of our customers will come to us and our staff will come to us thinking that the new normal is not what it was like 2 years ago, but it is a fundamental change to the way we think about the nature of knowledge and our services in the knowledge industry. So I'm going to argue that it's time for a complete reinvention of our profession in the library world, one that builds on our strengths, one that builds on our capabilities, but one that actually challenges us in new and different ways that are really important for education and really important for us to reflect on the role of library technicians. So to start this little journey, libraries were loved and missed. We have had great presentations so far today that have mentioned how libraries have provided services outside of what were traditional coming into the library or going through the digital gateway to actually create click and collect, pop-up services, all sorts of new community services, but they were fundamentally at the heart of our communities. So I did a bit of looking around to see what the community thought about us. What were the stories that were getting resonance? Australia Post thought, this is a business opportunity for us. We can do click and collect. And many of us, well, I go to Australia Post twice a week to post material from the ANU Library to our clients. So we actually had people thinking they could help us, which they did, and saw that that outreach of the traditional service of providing access was a natural within the physical environment. The variations in terms of the services we provided, one from the US offering free COVID tests, universities reaching out in new and different ways to education to offer engagement with students, university libraries around the world looking at digital connections at a time when sometimes it wasn't possible to go into the physical library, were all featured and highly visible across the landscape that our clients lived in. And then again, there's always someone out in media land that does something innovative. Oh, I'm not up to that one yet. So supporting homeless, importance of opening the doors. It's a really interesting story about Tweedhead not moving ahead fast enough. And then again, there are people who still have this crazy view of libraries. And this article was in the Sydney Morning Herald just last week that said, City of Sydney wants to reinvigorate itself. It wants music in the street, and we don't want to be like libraries. And I read the article and just about punched the screen. But the majority of the view, the majority of the community discussion, media discussion has been on the value of libraries in many different dimensions supporting their communities. So as we see this change, as we see this revolution, the changes in education, the changes in the way people engage, it's a real time to reflect. And just a hint, this is from Red Dwarf, on what it is that will make a real difference and what we need to foster in terms of the skills that we are building and the transformation that we are only partway through of our libraries and services. So I'm going to do a little bit of an ABC alphabet, the other way round, starting at E. So we've really seen an emphasis in the sector of higher education on how we can reinvent ourselves within the education system. For public libraries, we've seen homeschooling revolutionise the need for public libraries, and all libraries have had an important educative role in terms of the fight against misinformation, which Alia has taken on in a very substantive and highly valuable way. We're seeing libraries being a partner in all of those education activities, in the building of collections, access and spaces that need to be embedded in the environments where our customers are. So we want them to come to us and to have value from the services that we provide, rather than assuming that we will come in our physical doors. In terms of this environmental change of expectations, and expectations that are also reflected in sustainable development goals, I think there's a real opportunity for us to think about what it is that we have in our skill set that makes a real difference in this environment. When I look, and I want to say particularly library technicians, I see a real passion about wanting to have informed readers who are able to take into all of the aspects of their life the services that we provide, whether it's people at home, whether it's people at school, whether it's people in universities. And I see a really strong tradition of outreach, of communication using technology, Facebook, in Twitter, all the new and different services. And so as we're evolving to do this more strongly. And I have to say, as traditional reference services in some ways are not needed as much because we're offering federated services, search services, we're offering better catalogues, our material is accessible through Google. There's a question here about how we can see this part of the profession developing in stronger and new and different ways. So this sort of educational service is really fundamental and at the core. And I would encourage you to think, particularly if you're applying for jobs in this growth area of our services, what it is that has been your strengths personally, and think about how you have undertaken public relations campaigns, understand how you have actually thought about the links to the community, and ask the community what is needed, because that is what is actually going to distinguish us in this environment where our boundaries are seamless, but the value that we have is exceptional. The second I wanted to explore is that digital. D is for digital. Everything people think about us in many ways is digital. We've had the click and collect, so we've been able to deliver physical material, but it has been through different digital means. So we've had a great presentation today on from SCIS about creating new records, but fundamentally we're working with new tech all of the time. Our LibTech, library technicians are working with LibGuides and creating wonderful new tools. We're using LibChat, we're using LibAnswers, we're using all sorts of technologies in virtual environments in ways that perhaps they were not thought of to begin with. So we're actually using our LibGuides as the teaching tool. So if we're running a session on a topic, LibChat, the LibGuide tool is what we use for teaching and work people through that. And it's just amazing the impact that has. So I just wanted to reflect briefly on some of the tools that we use in supporting law students, where they are used for teaching, and we have more than 1,000 hits on some of the individual LibGuides that are used for teaching. So the impact is enormous, and the technology is a way for us to achieve that. The nature of the skill set that we have around that combines both an enthusiasm for technology, which is terrific. And I did want to say, Broderick is a master in many of our technology spaces. He's the Excel whiz, but he's got an enthusiasm. This is what I think libraries really need to embrace, to learn new things, to participate in teams that are delivering these new services. And it is this evolution from, if you like, organisation and discovery tools to actually teaching and embedded learning tools that really give us a new and different skill set and give our libraries new visibility. In terms of the collections, that period of lockdowns has meant that we have really focused on our digital collections. So I looked at the call statistics for 2020 this week, and for the university libraries, 97% of the expenditure in resources was on digital resources. So that means 3% print, which means the way we are building our collections, the way we are making knowledge accessible is fundamentally changed in a way that won't go back. So instead of being, and we do still acquire print, we love print, but instead of the focus on that, the convenience for the user of being at home, being at work, being at their place of study, whatever that is, to be able to download is just enormous. So 97% of the material, possibly be going up to 98%, is going to be digital. What does that mean for the skill sets? What does that mean for the way that we manage records? Well, for many of us, it means that we are getting spreadsheets of records. We're getting KBART records. We're getting all sorts of automated delivery systems that come with that digital access. So our focus is then on how we can use technology to transform those records to make them accessible within our catalogues, our federated search systems, make them accessible within course lists for the education programs that we support, in new and different ways. MarcEdit is just used universally through our profession these days, and our aim is to, I was going to say, I need to provide chocolates really to our acquisitions and cataloguing staff to be able to deal with the highly variables that records that we get for material we will never see in a physical form, and to be able to transform them. So the focus is often in the way that we are managing large data sets, that the way we are thinking about our catalogues, our single search systems as primary pieces of research infrastructure, not just discovery systems and cataloguing systems, so that they can feed into other resources that people are using as automatically as possible through APIs. But we're dealing with records in completely new and different ways. In terms of the skill set that people bring to that, it is the knowledge of what is in a record, so that we can look at the critical issues about the missing data, the quality data, and we can undertake those transformation activities in a way which will enhance the experience of the user and enhance the holistic experience of our organisation in being able to recognise the resources that we have within them. So one of the fundamentals for us is the digitisation that we do of materials. So my background screen is from our Zudishan collection. We acquired in 1950 a collection of Chinese material from a great Chinese scholar, a writer, and those records have been transformed by going into a digital system where the material is digitised, and all of those records are available in a new and different way for scholars to reuse, so that those scholars that are looking at material can combine our Chinese collection with the University of Hong Kong's English language collection, and researchers can then add different layers to the work that we are doing. So this is a really interesting area for us, and I did want to emphasise that I think library technicians have a fantastic skill set that makes all this happen, in being able to maintain the quality, being able to contribute to digitisation programs. And I think it's something as a whole we need to recognise the basic skills actually enable the whole research world to go round. So I did want to make a comment too on the importance of discovery, and discovery outside our own environment. So this is, Broderick and I watch War of the Worlds. It's all free on SBS if you want to watch it. And this is in the second series, when they are looking to identify experts to be able to assist in controlling biocontrol of the invaders. They go into the library and there is no power, so there is no access to the digital catalogue. So they go through the collection one by one by one. I want to use that as a metaphor to say that we have often assumed that people will come to us for our collections. We'll do a search and then we'll go through the records one by one by one. Slightly less laboriously than happens in World of the Wars. But now one of the things we're trying to look at really is that flipped catalogue, so that if our community are searching through Google, if they are searching through their own interfaces in learning management systems, how can we deliver that access? How can we move beyond the traditional boundaries? And I wanted to talk a little bit about how we increase the vision of what our boundaries are. So in increasing that vision, we really are looking at how we can provide access in new and different ways and go beyond that traditional print collection. So we opened up access to over 4,000 ANU publications that were on HathiTrust. We didn't have to digitise them because they were already digitised, but we had to deal with the records, and that is no small feat. We've got a data commons so that early career researchers, academics can store their data. We've created a COVID digital archive so that we can actually collect that original information, again, breaking the boundaries. And I think it's that enthusiasm for knowledge, that enthusiasm to create new solutions by using technology, that is one of the great features that will move us forward. We're also looking at data policy. and about a third of the contributors to a new guide that will come out by the end of this year around data policy are library staff, fundamentally reaching outside those boundaries. So for C, collaboration. One of the really important things is that we need to achieve, with limited resources, all sorts of new access roles. I've talked a little bit about using HathiTrust to break down those barriers to create access. I've talked about data as a new collection, but the pods we create within our technologies to share across libraries, the way we reconceptualize places as places being wherever the user is, rather than the user coming to our environment, really take us beyond what it is that we are doing now. Seeing that environmental change, thinking about the skills, gives a real opportunity, I think, to articulate the fact that we have conversations. And in many ways, the most powerful conversations that happen in a library are the ones that happen in the online chat or face-to-face, where people just say things because they think them. And what we've got to do is find ways to harness that and have all of those stuff as part of the conversation, rather than just to rely on a survey. So collaboration, I think, really we need to rethink the role of engaging with everyone within our library. In terms of collaboration, we work with many others as well. And one of the things that we've been able to do in this funny time of COVID has been to have a number of events where everyone can come. There's no barrier around having to travel, and we need to create more of those events post-COVID. And I think that online training, online conference will never go away, which is a good thing. So for B, how can we blast ahead? How can we go beyond the stars that are exploding to really lead in the broader issues? Libraries have always been the heart of knowledge about copyright, but discussions on rights, discussions on privacy, discussions on information equity are real features of the national debate that we are participating in now. Many are leading in research around this, and we need to have conversations again that engage with everyone in the library, that will let us be bold and brave, but also be sensitive to move forward. And I think taking up those opportunities are really going to be quite profound to help us reshape the service model that we have post-COVID. And finally to A, amid the books. Been a lot of really interesting new reports on how we change the way we engage with space. We have lots of clients, and I think the presentations already today have reflected that, who really say they live their lives in the library. So that concept of a psychological environment, whether it's created in a particular learning space, whether it's created in diverse places across our community, is about unchaining the way that we look at customers, unchaining that concept of articulated ABC levels of reference, but thinking of new ways to actually globally review our spaces and think of virtual within that framework as well. So these are really golden opportunities for us, again, to take all of the voices into consideration. So I know I'm running out of time, so I'll just go fairly quickly through this. So we need some new beginnings. We need to take that thinking about the different dimensions. We need to look in new ways at the way that we are engaging and accessing with services. And we need to have all of the voices that we have in our community, that is our professional community, and library technicians being at the front end are often the voices that are the most important for us. And my final slide is one many of you really will recognise from Doctor Who. Second final slide. You want weapons? We're in a library. Books are the best weapons in the world. This room is the greatest arsenal we could have. Arm yourself. And then just to reflect that the power of knowledge that we have, the power of knowledge about our clients, the power of knowledge about publishing, data, the whole ecosystem really puts us in the situation where we need to use this as a springboard to move forward in every way. And I want to say thank you so much for everything you've been doing over the last 2 years, because it's been a hell of a journey. And to say I welcome you on the journey that we will have over the next couple of years. So I've left a little bit of time for questions, Rowena.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Roxanne. And we do actually have a couple of questions for you.
Great.
They kind of go hand in hand. There's a question saying, what is the best way, do you know, of a library technician to develop the necessary skills to work in a role that doesn't allow them to currently do that? That makes sense in my brain.
Yep.
I mean, if I need to rephrase that for you.
I think that's a really good question, because I want to answer on two different levels. The first is often what we are doing, what's being done in a role is actually really forward-looking. So sometimes we're put in, I've got to say, library technicians, I think, are put in a box by library professionals, and they think, oh, you know, they're only on the front desk or they're only doing this. But in fact, library technicians are dealing with new ways of dealing with material, all sorts of feedback from clients. And I would really encourage every library technician at their workplace meetings to ask for a couple of minutes to talk about their experiences, what they've been finding, and to give some really solid feedback, because I think, generally speaking, we're welcoming workplaces, and this just saying you want, having a little think about it and then saying you've got a contribution you'd like to make is really, really important. The second dimension is really the ALIA Library Technicians Group, and I want to pay particular respect to Kevin and to all of the leaders who've brought this together. Gail and many, many others over years have created many opportunities for people to discuss issues and become informed. And you really should be encouraging your workplaces to let you participate as far as possible, but also think about if there are some things you'd really like to learn, whether it's project management, whether it's something else. Be in touch with the Library Technicians Group and they will find a way for it to be delivered, because they're fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Roxanne. And quickly, would you recommend doing a Cert 3 or 4 in IT to supplement a library technician diploma to get some of those skills?
Yep. It depends on how much time you have, but I think personal reading and being in touch with free symposiums and workshops is good, and the IT cert is quite good, but it should be about the thing that you really love. So if you're really interested in cataloguing, find the cataloguing things. If you're really interested in use of virtual reference services, find that. Do the thing that you love.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. And thank you very much for your presentation, Roxanne. We'll leave it there and we'll be back in a couple of minutes with our next speaker. Thank you.